I have never encountered a more loathsome and detestable character as Monsieur Grandet. I have more sympathy with mass murderers and marauding Vikings than I do with the character of Monsieur Grandet. Welcome to Grant Loves Books. I'm going to be reviewing Eugenie Grandet by Honoré de Balzac. This book was published in 1833, very close to being 200 years. And it is simply marvelous, exceptional, sublime. You shouldn't allow yourself to discriminate against a book because it's quite old. Well, it is not dry. It is exciting. It is compelling. It is just a wonderful book. This novel is a part of a series which is known as the Comédie humaine, or the human comedy. And if you're wondering how many installments there are, if it's a trilogy, if it's a series of 4 or perhaps even 5 novels, 90 novels, short stories and analytical essays. Now, within this unbelievably large body of work, the human comedy, there are smaller subcategories. For instance, this novel is from a small series called Scenes from Provincial Life. And there are other categories such as Scenes from Private Life, The Celibates, Parisians in the Country, Scenes from Parisian Life, Scenes from Political Life. Eugenie Grandet. The story is a fairly simple one. The main character seems to be the father, who is just mostly known as Monsieur Grandet. And he, after a lifetime of reading, I really believe that I have never encountered a more loathsome and detestable character as Monsieur Grandet. I have more sympathy with mass murderers and marauding Vikings than I do with the character of Monsieur Grandet. Why is he so terrible? He is a miser. He is the ultimate miser. I think that Balzac set the standard for the miser in entertainment. But he does it so well. He does it so unbelievably well. Hoarding his gold, and he just loves gold. He spends his time just looking at gold, just seeing the shine, and that pleases him more than almost anything else. We have his wife, who is devoted to her husband. We have the daughter, Eugenie, who is also devoted to her family, her mother and her father. And we have the servant, Nanon, and they live fairly close to poverty. Even though he is hoarding all of this wealth, they live in a very antiquated house. The 3 women spend their days mending clothes or knitting and sewing new clothes for the winter. They wear their clothes until they are falling apart, and Monsieur Grandet, as an example of his stinginess, he will wear his shoes almost completely out, and when they are too worn out for him, he will pass them along to the servant Nanon, and she will wear them. You know, this man hoarding the money is just so painful to me. Every morning he goes to the larder where the food is kept and unlocks the door, and he takes out the food provisions for that day. He gives the servant an allotment of flour and sugar and perhaps eggs, and that is the food that she is allowed to use for that day for their meals. And then he takes the rest of it back and he locks the door, and the food is locked away in the pantry. And that is how the house is run. There were parts in this book that I had to stop reading and remind myself, it's just a book. He is a fictional character, but my toes were curling up in my shoes because it was so abhorrent. They live in a small town in western France called Saumur. In that village, everyone is whispering and gossiping. How much money do you think Monsieur Grandet has? That was a little bit of a stretch, that these three ladies are living with this man who hoards. You know, he has like a strong room where he just keeps his piles of gold, and he'll go in there and he'll lock the door and he'll count it and he'll play with it. And we have a fifth character. So Monsieur Grandet, he lives in this village in the west of France, and he has a brother who lives in Paris, and this brother is supposedly wealthy. He doesn't know because he hasn't met this brother for 30 years. And the brother has a child. This is Monsieur Grandet's nephew, and it is Eugenie's cousin's name is Charles Grandet. And these are the five characters that make up the story. At the beginning, Eugenie, she is coming of age, she's 23 years old, and these two families in the village are coming over to help her celebrate her birthday. But their motives are not just simple friendly, that they are primarily interested in to marry their sons into this wealthy family, to this absurdly wealthy heiress. However, there is some speculation that because Monsieur Grandet is such a miser, people suspect that he is going to marry the two cousins, Eugenie and Charles, to keep all the money in the family. And the idea of marrying cousins doesn't seem to be problematic in any way at this point in history. Into this scene of village life arrives cousin Charles. He appears at the door. There is this moment where these countryside people are looking at the young man from Paris, the animosity towards one another. Just, that's how you live? That's how you dress? Let me read you a bit. At 22, young men are close enough to childhood to indulge sometimes in childish silliness. Perhaps 99 out of 100 of them would have behaved exactly as Charles Grandet did. A few days previously, his father had told him that he was to go to spend a few months with his uncle in Saumur. Perhaps Monsieur Grandet of Paris had Eugenie in his mind. Charles's mind was busy with other thoughts. This was his first visit to the country, and he had made up his mind to cut a dash in provincial society as a young man of fashion. He would drive the neighborhood distracted with his splendor, mark the date of his arrival as a red-letter day in its history, and introduce it to the latest refinements of Parisian luxury. In short, Charles was prepared to devote more time to manicuring his nails in Saumur than he would spend in Paris, and determined to appear there in full fig, with no concessions to the carelessness in his dress, which an elegant young man does sometimes affect, and which is not without a charm of its own. And so Charles brought with him the most becoming shooting costume he possessed, the finest gun, the most decorative knife, with the prettiest sheath in all of Paris. He had brought the most elaborate collection of waistcoats, grey, white, black, beetle green, shot with gold, spangled, mottled, speckled, double-breasted, with roll collars, with stand-up collars, with collars turned back, with collars buttoned up to the throat with gold buttons. He had a specimen of every variety of tie and cravat in favor at the moment. 2 coats designed by Bousson and his finest linen. The handsome gold-fitted dressing case that his mother had given him. All the appearances of a young man about town, not forgetting a ravishing little writing case given him by the kindest of women, kind to him at least, who was making a tiresome, boring journey in Scotland at the moment, in her husband's company, a victim of suspicions, which demanded the sacrifice, for the time being, of her happiness, and plenty of dainty notepaper for writing a letter to her every fortnight. So Charles, cousin Charles, is spending the night. Now he is really very perplexed. He suspected that his uncle was rich. You know, he's a wine merchant. Young Charles was imagining that he would be staying at a chalet or a country estate where he would be riding and hunting every day. And he's come to this small, dark, rotting home. Like it's dismal. He's spending the night and they're taking him up to bed. Charles looked round him at the dingy, smoke-discolored walls and the worm-eaten staircase, now shaking under his uncle's heavy tread, with dismay and growing disillusionment. The place struck him as being like a hen roost. He looked back over his shoulder with a questioning glance at the faces of his aunt and cousin. But this staircase was so familiar to them that they saw no reason for astonishment. And taking his glance for an expression of friendly interest, they responded with a pleasant smile that drove his heart into his boots. "What on earth induced my father to send me here?" he said to himself. And I can't tell you anything after that, but there is a lot to come. Now, I just want to tell you something about the style in which this is written. In this book, there is a lengthy introduction by M.A. Crawford, and she is also the translator to English. So it's pretty good introduction. Lengthy. She points out that Balzac's style was that he wanted to create characters that were one aspect of psychology, and that he would have the father represents avarice, insane greed and hoarding. The mother is pure wifely devotion. The daughter is innocent love. The servant Nanon is just hardworking peasant, born to toil. And Cousin Charles represents social climbing. 5 characters, 5 traits. And he takes these characters, he puts them in a room, and Balzac allows the drama to unfold. And it is exceptionally good. Couldn't wait to get to the end. Like, I could read 50 pages of this without once getting tired. I would have to limit myself. I would say, I would try to limit myself to 50 pages a day, but I don't even think I was able to do that. I think there were, it was 50 pages and then 100 pages and then 100 pages. It was too good to stop. But this book really affected me. This book really, really affected me. I was reading it and I would just have to close it and pause for a little bit to kind of get the, that like disgust, real disgust. Like, how can this man live like this? And not only for his own life, but his family. Just, a book does that. A novel. Words on a page made me I was twisting. That is the power of literature. All right, thank you very much for watching. I hope that I have motivated you to give this book a try. Please give it a try. This is Grant Loves Books. Please like and subscribe. Liking helps to get the video out to more people, which I think is a good thing. I think that I'm spreading the good word of literature. If you'd like to buy the book on Amazon, I provided a link below. If you follow my link and you do any shopping on Amazon, not just this book, but anything at all, pillowcases, dog brush, those clips that you put onto the top of the potato chip bags after you've opened them, ornamental chopsticks. You're shopping on Amazon, I'll get a little cut. It helps keep the channel going, it helps me buying new books, it helps me pay for the goddamn expensive internet in this province. Also, there's a link below to my Patreon account if you want to support me more directly. For $3 a month, you can see all of the videos that I'm posting. I post 2 YouTube videos, and then I post 1 private Patreon video. And the Patreon videos are a little bit more edgy literature. Sometimes because I think they might be a bit mature for YouTube, and sometimes I just, the people who pay a little bit extra who support me, I want to give them, kind of the fun stuff. So if you want some of the fun stuff, $3 a month. It's really not very much. 3 Canadian dollars a month. Come on. Not too much. All right. Grant Loves Books. Stay tuned. Don't hoard your money. Spend it. it's, you will, God, you'll probably say, Grant, I want to come over and I want to clean your kitchen for you. That book was so good. Yes, I know. It's okay. You don't have to clean the kitchen. I'll do it. I don't mind. It's meditative. Hello.